leaves me speechless. I think it is so powerful, and I think it is so inspiring what the women in Liberia were able to do. So we're going to have a little discussion, a little panel discussion, and some time for some question and answers. And so I would like to invite up Linda Douglas and Sara Persechino up to the stage. Persechino, thank you.
You didn't bring a baby for me to hold?
That's good.
So Sara is a consultant specializing in nonprofit communications, organizing, and development. And her clients include Planned Parenthood, New Hampshire Action Fund, and the New Hampshire Coalition Against Domestic and Sexual Violence. She's also secretary of the Friends of the Hopkinton Library Board and a New Hampshire Women's Foundation ambassador and a former Hopkinton Select Woman. Sara was instrumental in organizing the Concord Women's March in January. And Linda Douglas is a trauma-informed service specialist at the New Hampshire Coalition Against Domestic and Sexual Violence. And she's also the Zonta Club's Hall of Femme Award recipient last year. Linda's a pioneer, educating professionals, victims, and the general public about the long-term negative effects of domestic and sexual violence and assault on victims and survivors. And so Sara and Linda are going to be speaking about their respective experiences and then responding to some prepared questions that they have, and then they'll open it up for some questions. So thank you.
Alphabetically, though.
They told me you were going first. We know each other.
A bit. So I got involved in the Concord Women's Rally, which we call the New Hampshire Women's Day of Action and Unity, through my work with Planned Parenthood New Hampshire Action Fund. Probably like a lot of you, the day after election was a little bit surprising. The night, 2 a.m. or so, was a little bit of a shock. And like we saw the call on Facebook for this event in DC, a lot of us in New Hampshire were wondering what we could do. We needed something positive as we looked towards Inauguration Day. And I had a 2-month-old at the time as well as a 3-year-old, so going to DC was not feasible for me. And I knew that if it wasn't possible for me, and I work in this movement, it probably wasn't possible for a lot of other people. For financial reasons, work commitments, family commitments, going to DC for a day to rally just isn't something a lot of us can do. So at Planned Parenthood, we decided we would do something in New Hampshire for our supporters and then work with other groups to do something locally. And in addition to being something in solidarity with the DC event, we wanted to use the opportunity to bring attention to state-based issues that we'd be fighting. Because there was a lot of attention about what would be happening under the Trump administration, but in New Hampshire we're also under a new administration and GOP leadership that we were a little bit worried about too. So we started working on this event probably right before Christmas, which is a terrible time to start organizing an event because no one's in the office. So I wouldn't advise that, but we made it happen. We had a coalition of about 3 dozen organizations in the state, a lot of whom we had not worked with previously. So we were working with the Zonta Club of Concord, we were working with ACLU, who's a normal partner, but we outreached to the YWCA of New Hampshire, or the YWCA, sorry, for my acronyms. And we were working with, for the first time, the New Hampshire Association of Social Workers. We were working with the New Hampshire Council of Churches, a lot of independent organizers, the Greater Manchester NAACP. So we had a lot of people at the table who were organizing the event. And it was really important to us that we had speakers and a program for the day that spoke to the diversity of the issues that we were focused on. We were all committed to continuing to work on legislation and initiatives that would move forward for women's health, LGBTQ rights, human rights, immigrant rights, a broad variety, which I'm sure we all identify with here. And we wanted to make sure that even though this event started because people were concerned about who was elected president and policies that that person might think we accomplished that. I think the biggest accomplishment we had, though, was this organizing structure that we started. Because there were groups that hadn't worked together, people who hadn't worked together, and we started this network that I know people have continued to work with on legislation in New Hampshire, calling on these connections. And, you know, our goal was to get 1,000 people to the State House on January 26th, I think the date was. And as we got closer, we realized that was going to be exceeded. When I finally got up to the State House steps the day of the event when the program was about to begin, the whole plaza was filled, and the City Council in Concord and WMUR called it to be at least 5,000 people. So we had the biggest event there, which was great. I actually went up on the steps before the program started with my then 4-month-old and 3-year-old on my hips, and it was just really inspiring to see how many people came out just to be there, to feel like they were a part of something. And of course, what happened that day was just the beginning, and we worked really hard to keep people involved. We were able to collect over 3,000 names and emails that all the organizations share to keep in touch with people about what else they can do in New Hampshire to take action. And I know a new group, New Hampshire Unites, was started through that, and there have been other rallies going on in the state. So that was the Women's March, I guess. I don't know. I prefer questions rather than rambling and getting dry mouth.
Do you want to take questions after each one of us?
Why don't you go and then, yeah.
Okay, so I'm the Trauma-Informed Services for the New Hampshire Coalition Against Domestic and Sexual Violence. And I want to say that in the violence against women work over the past 25 years or so, I mean, we've been going on much longer than that, but there was a point when we realized that we were not providing the services that we needed to provide to women who were using substances either to self-medicate because of the trauma of the abuse that they had experienced, or had been coerced into using substances by the person who was trying to control them. And a lot of programs weren't accepting women into shelter who were actively using drugs and alcohol, or who had some mental health issues that may have been difficult to manage while they were in the program. And so, fortunately, about, what is this, 2017? I lose track. In 2009, actually, the coalition received a grant in 2008 to fund what they called the Open Doors to Safety Project, which was to work with the domestic violence programs, of which there are 13 in the state. One doesn't have a shelter, but it's located on the UNH campus, to work on providing services and enhancing the services to victims of domestic and sexual violence who had substance abuse and mental health issues. Unfortunately, at that time, we were just beginning to get a lot of information on how trauma affects the brain, how it affects people's ability to be able to think clearly, move forward, and how that trauma contributes to a lot of people's mental health, and contributes to maybe their desire to use drugs and alcohol in order to self-medicate all of their past trauma. And normally I spend hours talking about this, because then I'll go into the adverse childhood experiences study, but if you want to go home tonight and Google that, that will keep you very busy for a while. So what we've been doing is advocates at our 13 domestic violence programs have received training and consultation over the past 8 years from myself and from people that I brought into the state on being able to work with women on understanding those mental health issues, understanding the substance abuse issues, all under that umbrella of understanding the trauma. That it's not that there's something wrong with someone, that it's something happened to them to lead to what's going on in their lives right now. And it's been so helpful because it helps advocates to be able to sit back and say, this person's not doing this just to be difficult, or, beginning to sit back and say, what about this woman's trauma is getting in the way of her being able to move forward? And then being able to provide trauma-informed services. And trauma-informed services are primarily working with somebody in a way where you understand that trauma existed in their life, and you're not going to do anything that could possibly re-victimize and re-traumatize them while they're receiving services. So that became our goal. Then we started to add in services to children who had witnessed domestic violence, and teaching advocates about how to be able to work with a non-offending parent on understanding the effects of domestic violence, understanding the effects of the trauma, and being able to help that non-offending parent be able to reestablish a relationship with her children that may have been fractured because of the abuse that was occurring in the family. And so that became very, very important. Because I think that goes into the next question that I've got here. How are survivors empowered to reclaim their lives? Well, as you can see from the film, when mothers see how things are affecting their families, they become motivated to change. And when they're receiving the support that they need in order for these changes to happen, then they feel the power that they have in order to make those changes. So by helping non-offending parents, primarily mothers, to be able to understand the effect on their children and letting them know that there are places in the state. I love family resource centers. I don't know if anybody's here connected to family resource centers, but they're very good at providing services to whole families. Our programs provide services, support groups, all of that. And anytime that we can support and lift and hold up women, then they're able to do it, what I call a parallel process. Provide that for their children, which goes ahead and strengthens the next generation and hopefully break that cycle of violence that we know is so generational. It moves and keeps and continues. So that's what we can do as a society, is to be able to understand that when we can support families, when we can provide safe shelter, when we can provide programs that assist with housing. You know, we have so many families in shelter for a long period of time, not because they need to be safe, their safety issues are taken care of, but because there's no affordable housing in the state for them to move out of shelter into. So we work on building up all of that support, providing everything that they need. But if you're a woman and you're working a minimum wage job and you're trying to get a 2 or 3 bedroom apartment here in the city of Concord, that's $950+ a month, not including your utilities. And you can't do that. And then if she takes on a second job, that means she's away from her children. Okay? And so it's about being able to find those ways by keeping an eye on what's happening at the legislature. We have a public policy department at the coalition that keeps an eye on everything that's happening there. The women we have working at the legislature, I just don't know how they do it, because they hear all of these stories. They see what people are thinking of doing to possibly make women and families less safe, and they fight constantly to make people more safe. And so all of this is going on. So it's becoming aware, taking and looking at that lens of what is this law or this budget, how is it going to affect those people who are our most, trying to think of the most vulnerable, and those are primarily children and the parents who are trying to protect them. And that's the kind of support that we need. Thank you.
Questions for either of us? It's been a lot tonight. If I know you're just sort of like still absorbing from the film.
I know I was sitting and I'm like, how am I going to talk after that? Okay, I think we all just need to go get ice cream and go home. You know? So as a trauma specialist, it is my job to remind you to take care of yourself tonight. That you find some way to laugh, to do some self-care, so that tomorrow you can get up and say, okay, what is it that I can do with the information that I received when I went to the World Affairs Council Zonta event at the Red River. But give some time for yourself to realize that you're going to feel really overwhelmed, very tired, and just wonder what it is that you can do. But if you take care of yourself, you'll be